Airlines suspend workers for posts about the shooting of Charlie Kirk. This was last week. As many know, there was a fatal shooting, assassination on Charlie Kirk, who was political pundit, activist. And a lot of people took to social media after that and rejoiced and said some really unhealthy things. And there was a marked, I guess, campaign to bring those to light, which resulted in Delta, American, United, and then every other company out there to take action, including the United States military. So I guess it's unfair to say just the airlines, because the military did too. And they've been suspended because obviously they're union employees. They can't just be fired on the spot. But those are dealing with disciplinary actions. So that brings up the topic for this. I don't know if it's specific to airlines or just in general, because, I mean, we are both military and airline pilots and social media people. And yeah, Gonky, your thoughts?
Well, like we said earlier, very sad. Given that this is aviation podcast, I just try to keep it on the aviation side. So like you said, Mover, airline pilots suspended. I've heard it from, I've got, you and I both have friends across the industry, and I've heard it from, from all of them. And then I also read today, like you said, even the military is cracking down on it. So, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on it. I'm a Christian as well. And Charlie Kirk was also a Christian. That's where a lot of his views came from. And I guess the thing, if we're going to look at it from the perspective of aviation and pilots getting suspended, like I guess I'm a little taken back that, a professional would need to take to social media and make comments like some of them have made. You and I talked about it offline a little bit. Making comments, right? Free speech. We live in a country where, we're allowed to peacefully assemble and talk about things. That's actually how Charlie Kirk did a lot of his work, like at universities, right? Just drumming up discussion. And he was shot. And then, if you want to look at it fairly or play devil's advocate, it's like, well, why should somebody be, punished for just voicing their opinion on social media? And I guess for me, the line in the sand, obviously, is supporting a violent act, obviously, or even, encouraging a violent act. So, and I come full circle back to, that's why I'm surprised I would consider most airline pilots, professionals at what, at obviously at aviation, but, you have to carry yourself a certain way in uniform and out of uniform. And some of the stuff that I saw, people are in uniform, airplane in the back with the tail, Delta, United, American, whatever, and they're posting about it on Facebook. So I have a hard time understanding the mentality of somebody that would do that. I think I've heard things I disagree with. There's lots of people that I disagree with. I mean, I lost my flying career based on my beliefs, right? I mean, I had a military chaplain tell me I didn't believe in God, and he was part of the reason why I'm not flying airplanes anymore in the military, So, my flying was taken away from me. At least I didn't lose my life, right? But, those people that did that to me, I don't wish anything violent against them. Not everybody thinks like me, and I know they have families too. It's not just the person, right? So I know it's a little bit rambly and convoluted, but at the end of the day, I'm just surprised that a well-educated professional just can't keep it professional. It's like, my God, somebody died, a husband and a father, and being a dad of a little girl and a little boy, much like Charlie was. That is what weighed on my mind the entire week, is that those kids are going to grow up without a dad. And dude, that's real. I mean, that's a big deal. I think in the household, if dad's not around. I see with my kids, even when I'm physically not here, it's not good. So I don't know. That's how I feel about it, man. What about you? What's your take on it?
Boy, social media has been a gift and a curse, right? Without it, I probably wouldn't be. Well, I wouldn't be sitting here today, but I also wouldn't be a fighter pilot because the reason I found out about Guard Reserve was basically through social media, an old website called baseops.net. But what it has also brought out, especially as the the 30-second attention span generation, not generation, but movement has started, TikTok, Reels, stuff like that, is we get very small snippets of things and then we get very angry. We get very emotional. It's all emotionally charged. Everything's clickbait. Everything is sensationalized, stuff like that. We've talked about it because we don't, some of the stuff we've seen we don't like because it's sensationalized. As a result, what happens is people get very emotional and then they want to voice their opinions. Whereas probably in the past, when you and I grew up, you might not have had that town square. You might have had your friends, your very private friends group, where it kind of kept you in check. Because I think when we're in person with people, we're much less likely to say, vile things. The intrusive thoughts don't really come out because there's that, hey, I'm in, it's a face-to-face interaction versus when you're sharing, liking, whatever, sometimes, those thoughts that maybe should have been kept private come out. And I think that people feel a little too free to do that. Now, let's talk about the freedom part. First Amendment, Congress shall make no law, right? The Constitution protects, it does not grant, it protects rights, and it protects us from the government. It is a limit on the government. So when it comes to the First Amendment, and I've seen this, like people are like, well, I thought it was a First Amendment right. The government shall make no law that stops you, but there's nothing that can stop the consequences. And when you are in a profession where you are, number one, responsible for the lives of hundreds of people, and then number two, being paid quite handsomely, your reputation is your livelihood. And so when you associate your company with whatever vile things you're thinking of, whether it's in private. Now, let me also say, there's no such thing as private on the internet. If you think your group chats, you think your private chats, your private messages and stuff like that, you're one screenshot away from losing everything. And people need to realize that. So like, just because you did it, it was private does not mean anything. If you associated your employer with something you said and they can tie you to it, which is just about everything, you are putting yourself at risk. For the company side, it's their social media policy. Do you think an airline as big as Delta, United, American wants to alienate half of their customer base in the midst of a tragedy where people are rightfully, regardless of what you thought about Charlie Kirk's politics, the things he said, he did not deserve to die. He was out there peacefully debating with people, and whether you agree with it or not, the idea was a discussion. What happened after that discussion, whether they clipped it or whatever, it doesn't matter. Nobody needs to die for something like that. That is not what the American way of life stands for. So, yeah, if you wanted to go debate him, fine. Taking his life, orphaning his kids, leaving his wife without a husband, that is way, way beyond the pale. So to celebrate that goes against the values of just about every, well, not just about, it'd be hard to find a company that's okay with you celebrating the death of someone who was peaceful. I just they don't want to be associated with that. Same thing for the military. The military is even worse because unlike the airlines, which you do have First Amendment rights and you can, you're just not free from the consequences. You can say something and then deal with the consequences. The military can actually take your freedoms away for stuff you say because you are subject to the UCMJ. We give up certain rights in order to maintain good order and discipline and be a part of the world's greatest military. That's what you sign up for when you do that. So when you go out and put yourself out there and associate yourself with that uniform. Now, on the other side, do I agree with cancel culture? Absolutely not. Did I agree with it 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Now, no. I don't think we should be, because I see the extremes, right? If you go and like, oh, well, he didn't say something nice. He said he said he really didn't. He said something really mean about it. That is different than celebrating someone's death. I think we need to separate the two. Having an opinion about somebody is not a bad thing. Espousing your belief that someone should die in a horrific fashion is a bad thing. And that is the difference. So we don't need to be canceling everybody, because guess what? You cancel somebody today, you're canceled tomorrow. That's just, if your side's the one canceling, you're going to be the one being canceled tomorrow. It's a mutually assured destruction of escalation that I just don't think is needed. I think we need open, honest, and positive dialogue, and we need to start treating people like humans and not taking ideas and turning them into life and death, anger, emotion, all this stuff. We should be able to talk and not go to extremes, calling people names, with all the rhetoric and reducing people to Hitler, fascist, racist, all that stuff. When you start throwing labels, you're dehumanizing people, and you're not even talking about ideas anymore. So in this sense, it's free to shut up. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, you joke, it's like Gonky doesn't have any Instagram or this, Mover is my social media feed, and a lot of it's because I saw Ron, he's a longtime viewer of the channel. He said it best. He's like, dude, like, you used to actually have to get in front of people to share your opinions instead of just hide behind a computer screen. Yeah. And when you actually see, oh, hey, there's a real person there, it's going to change. It might not change how you feel, but it'll definitely change the delivery of what you're thinking. I mean, well, and like you said, Mover, like, we're dealing with real people here. And we've said it many times on the show. Like, hey, Russia, Ukraine, let's just talk about this. Like, violence is like is the absolute last resort, man. And when you're talking about just at a college campus in the good old United States, a guy just, wanting to have a debate over some topics that, I mean, I don't even know what they were talking about. It didn't affect my life one bit. It couldn't have been that important.
Well,
right.
And that's the other thing too, is it's free to just ignore them.
Right.
Right. Dude, this hits home for me because in November or December, I got my first death threat,
right.
through the Mover mailbag. It was anonymous, it was all like, we talk about aviation, right? Like I don't affect policy. I don't do anything like to hurt anybody, but I got a death threat. And, so when I see stuff like this, I'm like, what? And I read the comments of our videos more like recently, our I called it the cigar boat, but the cigarette boat, right? People just get so wrapped up around their own beliefs that they don't even hear what you say. Or maybe they hear what you say, but they don't comprehend it. They don't listen. And so they apply whatever they were thinking in that their predisposition to whatever was going on, the stereotypes, the biases, and all that stuff, to what you said. And if it doesn't match exactly to what their worldview is, then they go on the offensive. And it's like, wait a minute, we didn't even say that. Like, we didn't say that like that. We didn't mean that. That wasn't, you just applied a whole thing that is not there. And it's because, number one, people are spoon-fed stuff that is meant to rile them up 24/7. Like, that is the media cycle, the news cycle, social media. Everything is meant to get some kind of reaction. I mean, that's why the most popular word on YouTube is react. If you go put on the news right now, you'll see, well, what's your reaction? In fact, there's people on Twitter and X that all they do is say your reaction, because that's what gets comments and stuff like that. reactions are what drive emotional responses. Emotional responses drive anger, fear, all this stuff. When it's really, dude, go back to your house. It's not going to affect you at all. You go to, if you don't like what somebody's saying, organize and fix it at the ballot box. That's the way our society is supposed to be designed, is that we vote, and that's how our voices are heard. And if we want our voices really heard, we do it, civilly. We talk. I don't know.
Yeah, no, dude. I mean, I thought we were past the whole, oh, we disagree, now I'm going to kill you and your whole family, right? It's, come on, it's like that's not how we do it here in America. I'd like to think we're civil, but I mean, I don't know, dude. Last week, a beautiful family lost a husband and a dad, and that's, for me, that's the saddest thing. And for any professional to celebrate that, I think is unacceptable.
And it's funny because I say this with the social media aspect. I mean, I don't know your airline, but you can't go on a trip without somebody telling you their opinions on everything in the cockpit, right? That's the whole point. Like, that's why they say, hey, don't take marriage advice, financial advice, or whatever, because you're going to fly with somebody that's sitting in the other seat that's going to start, politics, contract, all that stuff. They used to say, hey, what is the dating stuff? Don't talk about politics, religion, all it's, stay away from it first couple dates. Airline pilots, absolutely not. They will, on the first leg of trip one, try to, fish out whatever side of the aisle you're on, and then try to convince you and stuff like that. They've gotten better. It's gotten better, but that historically has been limited to, face-to-face. At least in face-to-face, you can read the body language. You can, oh, hey, let's do something else. I'm going to read the company manual because I don't want to hear you anymore, or whatever. But when it comes to the internet, you've lost the public square. You've lost, Gonky, you've done public speaking. That adrenaline rush that you get right before you stand up in front of somebody and tell them what you're thinking and try to organize your thoughts. You don't have that because you had time, which actually I think makes it worse. You had time to type it, probably edit it maybe, and then you hit post. Like, this is premeditated. This is not just, hey, it's a misspeak because I was in the heat of yelling something out. This is, you did all this. And as pilots or, anybody really, you can't be surprised when you say something that's just horrific and people go, I don't want to be associated with that. Your company, it's just, that's it.
I think that as a topic on an aviation show, particularly for our audience, maybe in the chat right now, before having a strong opinion about this, you need to take a look at what was actually said too. We and I were talking about this last night. I was like, oh, well, there's both sides. What these people said is pretty unequivocal, and there really isn't both sides to it. It was beyond the pale.
Yeah. Yeah. I for any,
like, to the point we're not going to feature it on the show.
No. Right. But for any side, I condemn political violence. Period. Dot. It's just not acceptable.
Dude, any kind of violence.
It's not our country. That's not our country.
Exactly.